Tonight, in the Retro Computing channel, this is the story of how I became a pirate. Yo-ho! And a bottle of rum. Yeah, I think it's toasted. Second capacitor going off. Well, you're watching currently the death of 80s electronics, and exactly the reason why I wanted to make these videos before it's too late. My monitor just blew a second capacitor tonight. It blew the first a moment ago, and it's got 4 of them, so 2 to go before it's requiem for this fine piece of French engineering, because this is a Thomson monitor that was made especially for the Thomson MO5 and TO70. So as you can see, it's smoking profusely. It's very acrid, believe me. Probably toxic too. The good news is there won't be too much mosquitoes to bother me tonight. It's really bad because I wanted to show you really how those small computers were used with those small flickering monitors of the day, and well, maybe the demo could go on tonight for a small amount of time, but I wouldn't bet on it. So I'm just trying to show you the boot of the MO5, and then we'll watch it on a modern flat panel television, but it won't be the same, of course. So just if we can, yeah. Well, as you see, the smoke is still pouring out the monitor, but well, it's working okay. Time to move my installation on something that will be much less prone to violent outbursts, and catch you in a moment. Before we go any further, I have a confession to make. I never owned that computer in my teens, although it was a very popular computer to have in those days. This particular model I got in a pawn shop for a few euros, maybe 15 or 20, I don't remember. And it was 1985 Christmas special edition, and it came complete with manual, with free game, and the tape recorder. And it was a bundle, and it was sold like this, especially in 1985. So I can date it precisely because of the keyboard on this computer. The original keyboard was of the chiclet type, and it was rubber chiclet, so it was the feeling was exactly like the ZX Spectrum, very soft, very mushy, very unpleasant. and this one has the very nice mechanical keyboard, which is almost like a standard typewriter keyboard. I never had it because my only other toy computer I had in those days was an Auric one, which was also a fairly popular offering, and it was a contender in the market for the MO5. But the MO5 had for it the backing of the educational system, and this leads me to the pirate story, because it's linked in a way. What happened was in 1984, the Ministry for Education decided to bring computers in schools and college and high schools, and they decided to give, well, it wasn't exactly corruption, but Thomson was in dire straits in those times. So they gave a little nudge, and they chose the Thomson offering for schools over the Apple proposition. Apple was ready to produce a cut-down Macintosh for schools, and it was ready to build a factory in France instead of Ireland. And well, we all know how the story panned out afterwards. So the government chose the French offering, and we, as a result, French were set back probably 10 years in the revolution of computing. And this was made even more difficult for us pupils, because I think the global budget of the operation was ballpark, it was in 1.5 billion francs of those days, and 1.5 billion francs global. The breakdown was 1.3 billion for machines, and the remainder was to teach professors and teachers how to use the computers in classrooms. So, as you expect, very, very few teachers were ready, and it was almost an honor system where teachers who knew a bit by themselves about computers showed them to their pupils and to their classes, and those who were unwilling to take the plunge left the machines to rot in their boxes, and nobody could touch them. Where I was living, in a small town, it was a bit of midway between those extremes. The computers were set up, and there was following by mostly in my high school. It was under the responsibility of math and physics teachers. They set up clubs, but what happened? And again, it's very French. Well, it's very, very typically French way of thinking. They set up clubs, and membership was restricted to students that were good in math and physics. So it was not my case. I was interested in programming since, well, I won't say a long time, because it wasn't a long time technically, but for 2 years before I had been programming on paper, because I was always writing basic programs on my notebooks, and I wanted fervently to become a member of one of those clubs, and I was denied because my marks in mathematics and physics weren't good enough. And I'm sorry, but in my opinion, programming is an art that has some aspects that don't require especially to be extremely good in mathematics and physics. Well, so I was excluded, and that day I decided to become a pirate. Something that's very unlikely to have been seen by young computer users today, a tape. And it was a big game because there was 2 tapes and they are double-sided. This one is for the game itself, and this one is for the dungeons, whatever that is. So let's try and play the first. So, well, it's easy. Eject, push it, rewind to be sure, set the index to 0. It's like bicycle, you never forget. And then, if I remember well, it's load M, and you have it on the screen. As it's a dedicated unit, it should be well, it should start by sorry, I had forgotten to play, so it should be searching and it will go over the lead, and once it finds the game it should start to load it. Yeah, found it. So we've got the menu, and well, let's start with an adventure. Which one? Well, first choice. Let's go. So, well, it's not at all the type of game I like. I'm not a fan of D&D. I am so sorry for people who like it, but I never understood it. So, well, we've seen the boot. You've seen it takes quite a long time, and well, it was probably a very nice game for the intended public, and it wasn't me, so I am so sorry, but well, just for the sake of it, let's accept the default value, and we'll press a key just to see how it goes with all the characters. Okay, let's play and see what it looks like. Yeah, so, and it was certainly in I don't know, let's try verbs, means look, and noun action. It doesn't goes well at all. Maybe I should look in the manual, but I hate looking in the manual to play a game. Action inconnue. A noun action. Well, I think it ends here. You have a nice glimpse of the graphics capability of the machine. I'd rather stick to speaking about my private experience with this machine. Goodbye. Doo! Well, so physical description. Actually, the machine was rather nice. It looks almost like MSX, which will, as a standard, will come later on. So you have an opening for a cartridge. Not required because BASIC was in ROM. It's a legacy of the original TO7, which came completely empty with only a monitor and no programming language inside the machine itself. So it can be nice for quick loading of games and such, but it isn't required. You have Thomson Hallmark, which is the only piece missing from the kit I got. You have a port for a light pen, which preceded the computer mouse. It wasn't a very good input device because you had to touch the screen with the pen, so you had to be very close to the screen to use it, and it was bad for the eye. And the pen wasn't exactly precise, and so it fell out of favor quite rapidly. But it was Thomson's gimmick. So you have the port. There you have the expansion port protected, and it's simply the motherboard which is protruding out of the casing here. All extensions were sadly Thomson specific and all very expensive, which makes the system itself pricey. The UC wasn't that expensive. It was a bit more expensive perhaps than the competition, but the whole system was a lot more expensive. So it wasn't really a good choice in those days. For my part, I went the Auric way because Tangerines used very common parts and was compatible with a lot of extensions in printers and tape recorders, and everything was simply compatible with Tangerines or Auric 1. But everything Thomson had to be linked to something else from Thomson. So it was the cost of ownership was high with this machine. So let's crack it open and see what's inside. If we are lucky, yeah. So beware of the keyboard. And oh, nice actually. I'm very surprised. This is a late revision motherboard, obviously. I'm looking for the CPU, and it's this part, I guess. EF6809EP, and I think that's a Motorola logo. Some glue chip to access memory, and the memory is on daughter boards that are soldered, and it's almost a deep package. Oh, very nice. More glue chips. This is to protect the input-outputs, the big fat solenoids and capacitors. Nice. I don't know what that is. It's written class 7. Unsure. And this should be 6821P support chip. I guess that's got to do with the cartridge in bus. It's probably an UART or something like that. Maybe, could be, possibly, don't know. So that would be the ROM, I think. Not sure. But actually, a very good looking motherboard. Very nice. It wasn't a very advanced computers, unlike the C64. The graphics were, well, correct, but not top of the class, far from it. It wasn't advanced as the BBC Micro, which was also used in educational system, but in Britain. So it was fine, but it was not top of the class. And I think, as pupils, we should have had something better. And I regret that only for the purpose of saving Thomson, we had to suffer the pain of learning computers with unwilling teachers on basic machines that were sold as at the price of high-end systems. Although it had merits, because many people touched those computers anyway, but again, it was not the best, I think, we could have had. And probably the story would be different if Apple's offering had been retained for that purpose. So the end of the story of my pirate venture was the day the clubs, the various clubs presented their year's work to parents and teachers and classes. I managed with a friend to get in the room before the presentation, and now that the statute of limitation has expired, I can reveal I hacked into the demo program, and I did not exactly break it, but I locked it with a question, and the the question was a riddle, and you had to solve the riddle to go on with the presentation. Well, of course, once it popped up, the teacher in charge just pressed reset and reloaded the demo from the tape, and that ended my venture here and then. But this was the day I became a pirate. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and catch you next time.